And hello, welcome to this week's edition of Conservative Arkansas Media. I am your host, Paul Harrell. Thank you so much for being with us. It is always a thrill, a treat, a pleasure. So coming up on the program, we're going to be talking with a freshman state representative from District 34. His name is Joey Carr. Used to be a civics teacher, by the way. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about teaching civics versus actually now being inside a system with three distinct legislative branches of government, specifically the legislature, everything he's learned as a freshman, and so you definitely want to stay tuned for that. Interesting couple of days. So last week, Governor Asa Hutchinson, former Governor Asa Hutchinson, stopped back by his old stomping grounds at the Capitol in Little Rock to file. A lot of filing going on. You know, we've got all four of our congressional delegation in the House that goes to D.C., you know. They're all getting Democrat opponents. So we got that. But anyway, Asa comes to Arkansas to make sure he gets on the ballot here in Arkansas for the primary. So it's really weird. You have people dropping out of the race, right? Mike Pence drops out. Asa stays in. Tim Scott drops out, the senator from South Carolina. Asa stays in, and he's posted on Twitter, oh, well, you know, Tim Scott's a good guy. And everybody's responding in Asa's Twitter thread like, why are you still in the race? Well, because he's a pawn on the board, when, you know, for Walmart or for China or whatever. They just want to have their guy on the ground. It's like, you know, constructing a glass case. In an emergency, we can figure out a way to, you know, propel Asa. I don't know. I don't think he has a prayer. So what's interesting about this story is that Asa is announcing, you know, he's going to keep his campaign going. And in the meantime, the current governor of the state of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, last week. So Asa files last week in Arkansas, and Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders travels to Florida for a Donald Trump rally to endorse him for president in the primary and in 2024. And it sounded like this.
I know I'm upsetting a lot of Democrats by being here tonight because they like to pretend that they are the party of women. They don't like that the very first woman to ever serve as governor of Arkansas is a proud conservative Republican. And my message to them is very simple. You cannot be the party of women if you cannot tell us what a woman is. The truth is, it's not even a question anymore between right and left. It is normal versus crazy, and the left is doubling down on crazy.
You know, they sure are, and this is, you've heard her say this before. This is one of my favorite lines from her. She said it in the response to the State of the Union address that she gave when, you know, Biden gave his State of the Union address and miraculously got through it. I think everybody was, you know, by the way, he fell down a flight of stairs again today. That's the first thing I saw when I got up this morning. As of recording, it's Wednesday, the 15th. And, I mean, it looked like a tough tumble, assuming that was him. I mean, it looked like him, but anyway. Yeah, so she said the difference is between you know, the right and left is between normal and crazy. And it's exactly right. Matter of fact, I'm going to ask State Representative Carr here in a minute just a little bit about the issues that Arkansas tackled, the Arkansas legislature tackled when it comes to transing kids and calling it health care and whether or not that's a good thing. Obviously, the Arkansas legislature decided to pass laws trying to stop that. We need to go further and make it actual child abuse, but we did a lot of great things on that, and that goes to this idea of normal versus crazy. It's crazy to think that chemical blocking hormones that, you know, alter somebody's body and keeps them from going puberty or actually going through with the surgery, top or bottom surgery, removing of genitals. It's crazy to say that is health care, that is somehow, you know, that you can somehow envy, covet. By the way, it really is a 10th Commandment thing. I saw this the other day. I don't know, did anybody catch Rosaria Butterfield's amazing speech at the Liberty University convocation? It was a great speech about you know, her story, how the gospel transformed her life, how she came to faith in Christ. It's absolutely fantastic. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, the difference is between normal and crazy, and she went on to endorse President Donald Trump. Here's, again, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
We've got out-of-control inflation, violent crime, an open border, a rising China. Biden and the left have failed over and over again, and they know it, and you know it, and it is time for a change. That is why tonight I am so proud to endorse my former boss, my friend, and everybody's favorite president, Donald J. Trump.
There you go. Now, she went on to give a much more detailed speech. I mean, I think it's like 12 more minutes of that speech, and then she introduces the president. And he comes on, and you can check that out. It's all up on the internet and YouTube. I just find it fascinating here. I mean, if we go to, you have an exiting or a former Arkansas governor running for president, a current Arkansas governor saying, "No thanks, no thanks." And the thing about it, you see this clip right here? We're not going to listen to it. Please listen to this message I delivered to the Florida GOP. I mean, what a contrast. In this, he talked about how President Trump is going to be convicted and everything else. And, never one time does he mention that it's all a sham, that it's all a weaponized government against him. And he's all talking about we need to respect the rule of law. And it's really funny because I will make a prediction here that if Donald Trump somehow gets over all of the, let's say if he wins the election, okay? If Donald Trump wins the election, which is a whole nother can of worms, and he weaponizes the government against political opponents, but I would even say that's what the other side is going to say, right? Turnaround is fair play. And I just have this feeling, my prediction is Asa Hutchinson will have a giant problem on his hands if Donald Trump gets back into the White House. He will have a problem with what the new Trump Justice Department will do to political opponents. And turn around. I mean, what goes around comes around. That's all I have to say. I think Asa Hutchinson will be protesting. Oh, I can't believe the government's been weaponizing. So then he'll question the legitimacy of the Justice Department and their persecution, their political persecution of Trump. Of other people. I mean, the list goes on. You can name, they literally framed the man for treason, and it was all a Hillary Clinton op. Not to mention, I don't know, people who are bought and paid for by foreign governments like China. Yeah, that's a thing too. A lot of foreign influence in American politics these days. So, yeah, I just found it interesting. But if you come down here, let me see here. Asa's page. Yeah, I have always been a fan of Tim Scott. His departure from the race is a surprise. And America will miss his hopeful message on our future. Despite our challenges, I share his optimistic view of our country. What in the world? Why are you still running? What is going on? Looking forward to being on CNN and with Jim Acosta for more Trump bashing, he probably would say. Anyway, here's the tweet that, back on November 11th, I filed for president in my home state of Arkansas yesterday. So while that's going on, or about the time, or maybe a little before, you have, again, Sarah endorsing Trump in 2024. I find that just interesting. I never thought, a lot of times people, the good old boy system, people want to stick together and that sort of thing. That's not the case. That's not the case here. Oh, in other news, we have this. I didn't know anything about this, but also last week, we had this announcement that ExxonMobil is set to begin lithium mining operations in southwest Arkansas. Long-term project. They want to harvest lithium from South Arkansas. It's like they say it's like a brining process where they put liquid in the ground and they suck the liquid up and then they remove the lithium from the brine. And this happens at like 10,000 feet down, according to the article. 10,000 feet down, they do this and get lithium. And apparently, and I didn't even know this, but Arkansas's got lithium deposits. And, one of according to the ExxonMobil execs, it's one of the most concentrated lithium deposits in North America. There are others, but anyway, I had no idea. So that's going to be interesting. And, of course, and I don't see anything here about, economic development, how much I don't see it in here. I'm not saying it's not going to happen when it comes to, maybe giving them incentives, but I don't think, why should we give ExxonMobil any taxpayer incentives when they need what we have? They want the minerals that are in our land. So really it should be, well, come on in. But we don't have to do anything to sweeten the deal. We have something you want for once. We're not competing with all these other states. Not every state has massive lithium deposits, at least not to my knowledge. But anyway, we'll wait and see how that works out. I mentioned this earlier. All four of Arkansas's U.S. House members, so the House delegation from Arkansas that we send to represent us. Oh, man, just to say that we send to represent us. All four of them have challengers, Democrat challengers in 2024. Interestingly enough, one of those, there's a primary too, Congressman Steve Womack, who was, he took a lot of criticism online that I saw. Republican Steve Womack took some criticism when he was backing Kevin McCarthy during that whole deal when Matt Gaetz called the motion to vacate the chair, and then it sent Washington, D.C. into turmoil. Yeah, and I'm smiling about it because I still think it was great. Anytime their plans don't work out, the American people are winning because let's be honest, they really don't do a lot to make the average American's life better. It's all just a bunch of nonsense. And so when they were at a standstill, things were, I don't know, in my opinion, they were better. But Womack was backing McCarthy, took criticism on that online, and now he's got a primary challenger in State Senator Clint Penzo. So Clint Penzo challenging Republican congressman. He served a very, very long time from up there in Northwest Arkansas, over there in Northwest Arkansas. And he's got a challenger now. We'll see how that works. Not the first time that, Womack has had a challenger, but we'll see. He is certainly got a war chest, as a formidable opponent when it comes to, he's going to have establishment friends everywhere. So we'll see what happens. But Clint Penzo challenging Congressman Steve Womack. Also, the other three also have Democrat opponents here. This piece by Neil Early, Michael Wickline over at the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. And we have Pine Bluff attorney Risey Howard filed for the 4th Congressional District, so that means that Bruce Westerman has a challenger. Congressman Westerman will have a challenger. And then we have a guy named John White who ran for Democrat in 2022 for Congress, but he's filed as an independent in that 4th District. But all four U.S. incumbents, Congressman Rick Crawford, French Hill, Steve Womack, and Bruce Westerman have filed to run for re-election, and they will face opponents. So anyway, interesting article. Check it out. And, the reason I'm not spending so much time on that is because, right? There's an article over at the Arkansas Times this morning that was talking about how maybe the dreams of the Democrats to no longer have a super minority, that it's within reach. They're not even talking about winning, to get really anywhere other than they're no longer a super minority. Maybe we can get to where we're no longer a super minority, we're just a minority. That's kind of the state of the Arkansas Democrats right now, and so it doesn't really seem, but with the state, come on, it's kind of ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that they would even think that there's a chance that the people are going to say, yeah, the Democrats, that's great. They stand against every one of the 10 commandments, and we're all for that. Oh yeah, that's what I brought up Rosaria Butterfield, and you need to check this out. But that's what she talked about. She talked about envy and covetousness, and the desire to change your gender is actually based in envy. The desire to say, I don't want to be the way God created me, I want to be something else, is actually envy. And she talks about that. Again, Liberty University, packed full of students, and she gave this speech. She has a book coming out called 5 Lies, I think 5 Lies of the Modern Age. Anyway, it's fantastic. I've read articles about it, read reviews. I haven't read the book yet, but I'm going to. And you definitely need to check it out. Rosaria Butterfield and her testimony. She used to be a lesbian and came to faith in Christ and became a pastor's wife. It's an incredible testimony. And she was an English, or is an English, or was an English professor. Anyway, her speech was fantastic about the lies she believed versus the truth of the Bible, the truth of the gospel. And you guys need to check it out if you haven't. So, coming up next, we're going to be talking with State Representative Joey Carr from District 34, which is a portion of Mississippi County in northeast Arkansas. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back here in just a moment. Welcome back to Conservative Arkansas Media. I'm Paul Harrell. As promised, we have State Representative Joey Carr with us. He represents, is it District 34? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Well, welcome to the program. Really appreciate it. We wanted to have you on because you are a freshman. This is your first term. And we've talked about other freshman legislators, and I know we're late in the year at this point, but it's always good to get, to first of all, put a name with a face. District 34 is in northeast Arkansas. It's a portion of Mississippi County. And welcome to the program. Really appreciate it. How has your freshman experience been so far?
Oh, it's been great. It's everything I expected, a little bit more, based on my background of being interested in politics growing up and in college, and then as a public school teacher, I taught civics for 17 years, and so I understood the way the political process works, about Constitution, the three branches, separation of powers, checks and balances, so. I just wanted to get involved. Actually, my third great uncle served in the Arkansas House of Representatives immediately after the Civil War.
Wow.
He was kind of deemed an Arkansas scalawag because he enlisted with the Union Army, and so after the Union was victorious, Arkansas had to be readmitted as a state. And so in 1866, he was elected, served through that. And in 1868, they came up with the Constitution to readmit Arkansas back to the Union. And he is actually a signer on that. So I've always been interested in that, in dealing with that in my family. And so that carried over to my occupation of teaching. And I understood about, campaigning, getting elected, getting your name out, promoting yourself. The only surprise that I had was the cost of promotion materials. So not to say of being overconfident, but I just, I was well informed, and I had a good understanding and a good foundation. And several of my friends that I went to high school and college with have already served, and they've termed out, and they've always like, hey man, when are you going to run? You'd be great for the position. And so the opportunity presented itself, and I had a lot of local people in the community that were very supportive of me, and I was fortunate to be elected last November.
Wow, that's fantastic. I really appreciate the fact, and this is, I think, very an interesting point. So you said you've taught civics for how many years?
17 years.
Okay. So you've taught civics for 17 years, so you definitely know how the process works. But is it exactly the way it is on paper when you teach it out of a textbook versus actually being, in the midst of the sausage making from the, a bill getting help from the Bureau of Legislative Research, going into committee, getting it out of committee? It's got to be a little bit different than when it's just on paper, right?
Well, true. You have all the behind the scenes action that takes place. Like you said, Bureau of Legislative Research, those people, they are a valuable resource to the process. The staff workers that work in House member services, all the committee, you talk about committee work, but you really don't understand the amount of time that goes in within each group, as far as hashing out, going through, dissecting, decomposing, and breaking down all the parts of the bill. Some people are okay with parts of it, so some people aren't. And so you try there's a lot more compromise than what people would realize, a lot more so than what I realized. And I just think that goes to show how much the people that are serving here are really trying to get a holistic approach and do what's best not only for their particular district, but also to keep in mind and have a respect for the entire constituency of the state of Arkansas.
Wow. So you mentioned committees. This last session, you were, and I'm assuming still on, so public transportation as well as aging children and youth legislative military affairs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so was there any highlight in those committees? Any bills? Any issues that you guys dealt with? Back in the session that you want to talk about with us? Anything that stood out?
Well,
they might not be the sexiest committees.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's kind of the bane
and,
of freshmen, right? Freshmen don't exactly a lot of times get judiciary or public health or insurance and commerce.
Right. But I will say this: I knew that I had a chance that the education committee would probably fill up, and so I kind of shot for public transportation, where I'm at right now, in Mississippi County. I live 3 miles from the Mississippi River. I'm 5 miles from I-55. I'm about 100 yards from Burlington Northern Railway. And then we also have the Aeroplex. So I have all four modes of transportation. So I thought, that would be very practical for me to be on because we hit all four of those in my area. The one thing that's kind of surprising to me is the cost of of resurfacing or rebuilding roads and interstates. I do know that RDOT, man, they have so many projects going on right now, and we just had a meeting yesterday with Mr. Gil Rogers and Ms. Lori Tudor, who are up in the leadership positions of RDOT. And while everything is not going as fast as what people would like on some projects, they really do a good job for getting things going because you have to have the money, then you have to have the bids, you have to procure the services. There's so much work that goes into that before the projects actually begin. And then, of course, we all know that how long the projects take. And I just try to convey that while we have those growing pains and we want those things repaired, we have to be patient. We have to be cautious for our driving, other drivers, and also for those that are working in those construction zones. As far as DHS is concerned, it was kind of alarming to me at how many caseloads that DHS has, and again, those people over there, they do a great job. It's like they just have an ongoing list, and they do a lot of good things to serve the needs of Arkansans.
What are your thoughts in general about a lot of and we've talked about this on Conservative Arkansas Media many times, and I know it's crazy that it's November, and we actually have the fiscal session that's going to come up next year, but the legislative session that was back in January, February, March, April. Generally, what were your thoughts on some of the social issues? I mean, you are a Republican. I've been saying that I think a lot of these bills that came out to protect kids, the sexualization of kids, whether it's taking minors to drag shows, or the surgeries that we're calling healthcare now, that sort of thing. I think that was, and this is not just happening in Arkansas; it's happening everywhere. I've been calling them Christian red states. They're really stepping up to protect children. What were your thoughts on some of those pieces of legislation?
Well, it made it easy for me to vote because the basis of that is protecting kids. In dealing with children, we all know that they don't always have the level of maturity, the responsibility to make decisions for themselves. And if kids are exposed to that type of events, or if they're in that setting,
sexual debauchery. I'll describe it for you. Sexual debauchery.
Yeah, well, and I was just talking about in general, all the way across. Yeah, if that sexual debauchery, I mean, that's something that is going to be, in my opinion, it could have a traumatic effect on the kids. And so, whenever you make decisions for and that was what my thing was always in education. And as administrator, after I taught 17 years, I was the elementary principal for 13, and everything we did was for the best benefit of the kids. And so it made it real easy for me to vote in the direction that I did regarding all that legislation, because I just kept thinking, this is child protection laws.
Hmm. No, you're exactly right, and we now have. I mean, 17 years. That's a great career. I would imagine 17 years ago you wouldn't have thought that
Oh
we
no.
would have kids trying to identify as cats and wanting litter boxes and things of that nature. So yeah, I mean the slippery slope. I mean it's just gotten totally out of control, and it's just good that I feel I've just been so proud of the state legislature for on these issues, essentially saying, you know what, we can it's okay for us to take an issue and in our laws say this is morally wrong and you're not going to do it, and it's happening all across the country. Well, not mainly in southern red states, but I really feel like it's the path forward as long as the Supreme Court doesn't do what they did in Roe versus Wade in '74 and basically end the debate on
Right.
abortion. Whereas now we're able to have these debates over the transing of kids and again, removing genitals and calling it health care. Just absolutely insane.
Right. And one,
Go
and
ahead.
I was just going to say, and one thing that was really confirming to us, like you mentioned, we were kind of the trailblazers. You had other states that were coming up with similar legislation all around us: Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, the ones that I know of. That's there may be others that I'm not aware of, but we felt really good about being the trailblazers for that type of legislation.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, and I know this is going to be a tall order, but as I see it as a father myself, and I just see everything that's happening, I see this abuse. I would like to see us open up the child abuse statutes and qualify this as actual child abuse. And I know that's going to be hugely controversial because, I mean, it is abuse, but the practical effects that will have on people that if they want to continue these treatments for their kids, then treatments, okay, if they want to continue, caving to the left sex religion, as I call it, the idea, well, we'll just go to California and have it done. Well, no, not if you think you're going to come back here, okay? Because
Right.
this we've classified these procedures as abuse because that's what they are. And I know that's again a tall order. It was floated down in Texas, and quite frankly, there was a lot of GOP donors that they didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole because of the ramifications. But I think it's our obligation at some point.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll just. I don't know how soon that will come up, but I think you're probably onto something there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so last question. Fiscal session coming up next year. Any news on that, or any update that you want to give us on that?
Sorry, I don't know. I'm not very aware of the budgetary parts, and that's one thing that I am learning. While I understood about the law process, budget finance is an area that I am really having to learn and research and kind of grasp.
Absolutely.
I do know that a lot of money is going to be allotted to supplanting and supporting hospitals. Particularly in my district, there's already been 4 or 5 throughout the state, and then in my particular district, we have some coming up here in the next couple of months. And so I feel fortunate about that. That my constituents will see some help there, some renovation, and some upgrades on medical equipment in the hospitals. And then I know with highways and things like that, that'll continue. That's just kind of all I know, and I know that's just barely the tip of the iceberg. I know there's so much more that goes on to finance planning and all that stuff, and so I'll just leave it at that.
All right. State Representative Joey Carr, we really appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for coming on Conservative Arkansas Media. We really appreciate it.
Yes, sir, and thank you for the invite. Have a great
Absolutely.
day.
Let's do it again
Be blessed.
sometime. All right, folks,
Yes,
we're out of time. We'll catch you next time.